Hi ADHDers, I'm Rachel Dobu. I go by Adulting ADHD on Twitter, Substack, Instagram, and now YouTube. So I'm going to be speaking about my journey being diagnosed with ADHD combined type as an adult a couple of years ago at the age of 26. So in this video, I'm going to speak about the process of getting an ADHD diagnosis, why I thought I had ADHD, what's been working for me, and is it essentially worth it? Probably not in that order, as you probably guessed it, but stick with me. So starting back in 2016, a lot of the ADHD traits I realised that were really impairing my life, led to kind of like bad decisions, so forgetfulness, resulting in ADHD tags, so having to incur costs that if I didn't have issues managing my ADHD traits, I wouldn't have had to basically waste that much money, impulsiveness, and being super restless, so not being able to kind of commit to things for a long time, difficulty like managing like friendships, relationships, being so easily distracted, again issues with paying attention to detail, so that could be issues on forms and just so many other things, but I didn't really think it would be ADHD back then. Growing up, I always thought only guys and boys had ADHD, so it never really crossed my brain that it could have been ADHD. So what did I do when I was experiencing this? So of course I do what we all do, go on google.com, and the results came up with maybe early onset dementia. I was thinking, oh crap, this cannot be. Went to my GP, I said this to her, and she was quite confused, but anyways, we done a memory test. She told me to recite words like cat, dog, place, very random words, and I had to say them backwards. Of course, I passed. So I ruled out early onset dementia. I went away thinking, okay, maybe I was just going through a season and just had no idea. Fast forward to 2 years down the line, we are in 2018. I'm starting to think, okay, there is something wrong, and I still can't put my finger on it. But I watched this documentary which covers ADHD. And then when I saw grown adults talking about their struggles with ADHD, things like from small things to like not being able to do chores, to big things like when it comes to keeping jobs and maintaining relationships, the financials, so many different things. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's me. I can't believe it's ADHD. Went online, did a few of those free tests. At that time I was thinking, maybe I could have ADHD. This could be it. It's not the early onset dementia, maybe it's this. So I thought, well, maybe it could be the inattentive type, because at that point I had done so much research into it. Went back to my GP. This is 2 years later, guys. And I said, well, I think I have ADHD. And when I looked online, they said, well, a lot of GPs are a bit wary of diagnosing adults. So you should maybe take some examples of how you think you struggled with ADHD traits in childhood and adulthood, which is, I'm glad I did that, because my GP said, well, I've got a patient with ADHD and you don't seem like them. And I was thinking, am I in the right place? Am I in the right place? And I said, no, this is why I have ADHD. And I spelled out quite a few things to her. And she said, well, no, I still don't think you have it. And I'm sat there thinking, hang on, does she want me to remove my brain and point out, this is when I'm restless, this is when I procrastinate, this is where I'm impatient, impulsive, this is where I don't pay attention to detail, this is where I'm losing all of my memory, and then this is where I'm poorly organised. But I didn't say that. Let's put the brain away. I did say, well, I appreciate your thoughts, but can you please refer me to a psychiatrist for them to determine via an assessment? And then she said, okay, yes, but it's going to take up until 2 years. At that point, I thought she was just trying to dissuade me. So I said, yeah, it's fine. Just put me in the process. After I convinced her to refer me to a psychiatrist for the assessment, she had asked me to provide some examples of ADHD traits I struggled with in childhood, which is what many healthcare practitioners will ask you. I told her that I saw a counsellor in school because I was a typical ADHDer that would get distracted, that would need to just get up and walk around. I couldn't really control my impulses, so I did see a counsellor for a short time. I also knew I had quite a lot of letters from my teachers saying that I had attention span of a goldfish, pretty disruptive, and just the typical hyperactive traits that you'd actually associate with someone who has ADHD. The signs were there. I'm not sure why I wasn't diagnosed 10 or more years ago. But this part is really tricky for some people because a lot of people had left school years ago. They don't have reports. And in this case, the doctor might ask you to speak, if they can speak to your parents, so they can understand how it was for you growing up, because ADHD tends to persist in childhood, which is what the research says. Other people get the doctors to speak to their partners or somebody that has known them for childhood, so they can basically paint a better picture for them. So after that process, I saw my first psychiatrist in May 2019. So from 2018 to May 2019, under the NHS, you have to see 2 psychiatrists to confirm whether or not you do have ADHD. So these are some of the questions the first psychiatrist asked. It was something along the lines of, if you were presented with 2 tasks and one was easy and one was a bit challenging, which one would you do first? For me, I do the easy one because it's less daunting, and yeah, it just worked for me. So that's the type of answer I gave. Another question was, did you ever feel like you needed to finish people's sentences, or you would blurt things out before someone finished speaking? And how was that in childhood? So the questions are really phrased to gauge what your ADHD traits were like in childhood and in adulthood. There are some people who could struggle with some ADHD traits, but not all of them, which is why they may or may not meet the threshold to be diagnosed with ADHD. After I ran through that with the first psychiatrist, he said, well, based on the results, yeah, you do have ADHD, but under the NHS, you have to see 2 psychiatrists. So the second psychiatrist needs to confirm the first psychiatrist's work. And I'm thinking, okay, are we going to do it today? Nope, that was May 2019. My appointment with the second psychiatrist was January 2020. He ran through a similar type of questionnaire. He read the first psychiatrist's report, and then ultimately I was diagnosed with ADHD combined type. So if you think you have ADHD and it's really impairing your day-to-day lives and it's causing a really detrimental effect, which it does for many people, definitely feel encouraged to maybe do some research if you can't afford to get an ADHD assessment. There are communities on like Twitter, Reddit, Facebook with people who are probably facing something quite similar to you, where you can completely be anonymous, which was what I did for about a year. So I found that really helpful to kind of reach out to people when I first got diagnosed with ADHD, but you can do that without having ADHD diagnosis. Also, if you think you might have ADHD, it's worth looking at other neurodevelopmental conditions or other conditions that fall under the neurodiversity umbrella, like OCD and dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, autism, BPD. I think I'm forgetting a few others because you may have ADHD alongside one of those other conditions, and it could be one of those conditions that are making your day-to-day difficult to manage a lot more than it is the ADHD. Or you might just have that condition and you might have seen 1 or 2 traits with ADHD that resonated with you, but you won't be able to, it could be difficult for you to address and manage those issues if you kind of have other traits from other neurodevelopmental conditions. So that's just a suggestion, but I find that you know your brain and you know yourself well, and so I think it's very important to self-advocate for yourself, because a couple of years ago my GP told me that she thinks I couldn't have ADHD, and I came out having ADHD combined type and actually scored really high in the assessment. And if I didn't advocate for myself and I went away and said, okay, she's an expert, which she is, and I don't have ADHD, I would have been like, oh crap, the past 4 or 5 years of my life, because I would still be struggling. Was it worth me getting diagnosed with ADHD? Yes, mainly because one, it's quite difficult navigating life where you feel like there's something wrong or something missing and you can't put your finger on it, no matter how much you try to drive forward, no matter which new relationships you get in, what new jobs you start, which new city you move into, which new routine or coping strategy you manage to develop. I found that without putting a finger on something that you know it's quite different, it can be quite stressful and sometimes debilitating. So just knowing and understanding that my brain is different has helped me not only manage it better, but give myself some grace and being able to actually work to my strengths, because I'm able to tell some people, okay, this is what works better for me, or suggest things in a way that I know my ADHD brain kind of understands. So that's been the main thing for me. So definitely give yourself grace. Having ADHD isn't a death sentence. There are a lot of difficulties that come with ADHD, but there are also a lot of strengths that we have within us, like being creative, good at solving problems, being empathetic, and being able to build a good rapport with people. The list goes on. So I'll definitely be posting a lot more videos on adulting with ADHD. I'll be posting some YouTube shorts. So definitely subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any updates. So like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, reach out to community. There are so many people who would love to kind of like help and connect with you when it comes to adulting with ADHD. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will try to answer them, and I'll be back. Let's put the brain away. See you later, ADHDers.